Hello everyone, thanks for joining me in this video. I'm Trevor Williams and today we're going to be exploring the dbForge Studio for SQL Server created by Devart. Now our journey starts off on their website, which can be found at devart.com. That's DEV as in van, art.com. And Devart was founded in 1997 and it is currently one of the leading providers in database management software and general solutions. You can read up on them, you can go to their blog, you can go to their company and everything. So they resolve database development issues faster. And if you know anything about database development and especially deployments, you know how scary it can be when you have to make changes to your database and there are certain operations that we're just never comfortable doing no matter how many times you do them, right? So their tools I've found to be very useful in helping to abstract away a lot of that fear and a lot of the potential for human error as well. So if you scroll down, you see some of their products. So if you're more of an Oracle person, we have dbForge Studio for MySQL, we have the Complete SQL, and we have dbForge Studio for SQL Server. So this is the one that we're going to be focusing on. And if you click on it, you will see that they will actually give you the ability to download it. You can buy it, and they do have editions. Of course, they are paid editions and different licensing. You have the Express edition, which is free for download, but all of these editions will give you a 30-day trial, sorry, if you really want to test it out. Now, I have already downloaded and installed this application, so I'm just going to jump over to that. Now, after you've downloaded it, and it may take some time to download, you realize it's a heavy bit of software, and it's not heavy for no reason. It has all of the capabilities of the traditionally used SQL Server Management Studio built into it. So everything that you would get with the Microsoft SSMS is built into this studio as well. And then there's some. So, you'll always find third-party tools that do a little bit of a few things a bit better than the default software would, right? So this is definitely one of those situations. However, if you already have experience with SSMS, then you will feel at home given the general layout of this user interface and even the terminology. Everything is quite familiar. You know that we can start a new query, we can start a new connection, which is probably where we all start. You'll see that a lot of the icons are very similar to what we're used to in the SSMS. So, it's easy to kind of make that transition between the SSMS life and the dbForge Studio life, right? So we can start off by asking or creating rather a new connection. And of course, you just put in your server, the authentication type, and whatever credentials you need to. Once again, just like you would in SSMS. I already have two connections. I have one to localhost and one to my SQL Express. So when I expand them, of course, you'll see the database is listed out. Once again, everything feels very natural, very familiar. You'll see that the tables are listed out here. The few things that you may need to get used to would be like when you right click, you can create a new table from there. You can edit table, you can retrieve data. Usually in SSMS, you would see something like edit top 200 or select top 1000. So, if you're looking for those kinds of terms, you may not see them readily, but ultimately you can accomplish a lot of the same things. Out of the box, you can export data, you can import data. So in SSMS, you would kind of have to jump through additional hoops, like you have to go to tasks and then go and import or export. So even if you're a beginner and you know you need to do these things, but you're not sure where to find them, you see that they're presented to you in a far more obvious manner. So let us look at retrieving data. So I'm just going to right click and say retrieve data. And then it's just going to open the same kind of query window that we're used to and show me all the data in a tabular form. From here, I can right click, I can copy with headers, I can copy data as, and I probably have the same formats that you would have in SSMS. You can export the data differently, right? So you can export the data in different formats here. What was the other one I just saw? You can also generate script as, so you can do all of those things. So what I realize is that they're kind of packing a lot of the other functions into places where you wouldn't normally see them in SSMS. Jury's out on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Personally, I don't mind it. All right. So, generally speaking, if you are transitioning from SSMS to this tool, then you shouldn't have a hard time readjusting. Now, I want to kind of focus on some of the things that I appreciate while I'm in this environment that you probably don't necessarily get in SSMS. Now, then the autocomplete is one such thing. So if I remove this categories and start typing again, let the autocomplete appear, it's going to show me a lot more details about this table up front. And this can be very useful when you're dealing with bigger databases and you want to see what the columns of the table are while you're writing the query. Right here, I just get a nice snapshot, and I know that there's an estimate of 8 rows in that table. I mean, those bits of information can go a far way in helping you to be more productive. And just the same way, if I start, instead of listing out the columns, I remove the star and I did control space. Look at that. It's showing me all of the columns that I can just now click and it will just select them all for me, right? And then I can move on. So right there actually reduced some of the time I would spend retrofitting this query to only select some of the columns, and especially if I had like joins and other tables involved. We can all testify to how irritating it is to try and remember all of the different tables and columns, etc. That made it much easier for me, and then I can just execute, and you see it's nice and easy. Now, another thing that I think boosts productivity is the ability to auto format this query. So some of us are sticklers for indentation and layout and so on, and that's fine, but then we spend a lot of time either formatting the query properly the first time or reformatting it after we get it right. So what we can do here is right click, go to format, and then you'll see one that you have access to different format profiles, right? So usually SSMS will always generate the query in a particular way. And like I said, we would spend time fixing it the way we want it. But then you do have some presets here. So like commas before, yours would probably say default by default. That's fine. But you see, you do have different formats. So if I choose indented and then I right click again and then say format document, you see now it's going to actually just reorganize all of that for me using that formatting. So I find this to be a huge time saver, especially if you're somebody who gets caught up on the actual formatting of your queries. This will just, bootstrap all of that for you. So that's a very good tool to have in your toolbox. Now I'm going to move away from these more rudimentary things. With exploration, I'm sure you'll find a lot more tools and efficiencies in this tool as you go along. But I want to kind of focus on one that can really help you in a situation where you're maintaining large databases. You have to manage changes in, say, dev and production. You have to synchronize data. All of those things can be very nerve-wracking experiences. The general workflow for that would be that you take a backup of one of the databases and then you kind of restore, or you write custom scripts that would affect the changes in the target database, for instance, putting in the new columns or changing a data type, etc. Once again, if you do it in a test bed, I'm sure it's fine, but there's still always the risk of having human error. So dbForge actually gives us a database. Well, firstly, let's look at the database copy. I find that to be an excellent, easy to use tool, right? I'm not going to actually copy because you can see here I have more than enough databases, but I'm going to show you the capability. So if you were to copy a database, you'd have to either script it down, generate all the scripts, and then change the name in the scripts and then rerun it, or you would create a backup file and then restore the backup under a new name. With dbForge Studio, if I wanted to copy one of my databases, I could actually just right click it and then go down to tools, and then tasks, and then I can just say copy database. So you see, I can do all of the same backup and restore and generate scripts and everything, but I can click copy database. Copy database will then ask me what is the connection of the home database and where's the target. So let's say I wanted to copy the current copy of the production database down to dev. Sometimes we have to do a data refresh or down to staging, right? So that the testers, the QA team can actually simulate real live data that's in the system. A number of scenarios could be behind why you'd want to do something like this. So I choose the source connection, and then I choose the target connection, which could be another database. Incidentally, I can't go from this database to SQL Express. So I can't go from the dev instance to the Express instance. That's fine. But I can also just choose the same instance. I can go from Express to localhost, however. And then if I go to next, then it's going to say, okay, which database? So I did right click Northwind specifically, but I can choose whichever one. It's going to tell me that it already exists at the destination. So it's right there doing a comparison and letting me know, hey, be careful with this one because it's already there, right? So let me choose one that says, okay, one from a past project, go to next. And then I can choose to rename it if I want, all right? That's fine. It's fresh on the new server. Hit next and then verify which account will be carrying out the operation. Of course, you need proper permissions. I need to sort out some permissions on my machine. There are certain things that don't run as admin. So this won't actually work on my machine, but with the proper permissions, that's all you have to do to copy over a database. Another very useful thing, I'm just going to close that wizard, is the Schema Compare. Now, this is the real game changer for me. It is so easy to do that it's not funny. So if I right click the database and then I go to tools, you'll see here that you have, well, you actually have two. You have Schema Comparison and you have Data Comparison. So I'm going to do Data Comparison first. So if I do Data Comparison here, I can say what is the source, what is the target. I'm going to choose SQL Express, and I'm going to compare the data between the two Northwind databases. I don't have any reason to think that they're actually different. So right here, once again, you could say this is probably one is like in a blue-green deployment, right? So you had the green environment running for a while, new data got written to that database. Now you need to see what's different between the two so you can migrate over to the blue database before you swap. I'm just giving you scenarios here, right? So let's do this again. So set the source, set the target. We can go down to options, and then we can choose what we want to set as defaults, what we want to set as the comparison parameters, right? So you can go through that list. I won't change that because I found the defaults to be quite fine, but of course your situation may be different. Then for the mapping, we're going to go ahead and state that we want to compare all the tables and all the columns in those tables, right? Now you'll see here one object left unmapped. When I click that, I actually created a new table in the SQL Express development environment earlier, right? So it can't compare that because that table isn't present, but it can look at the existing tables and compare them. And then when we do the compare, we get this display. Now this display is showing us to the left what is in the source, and to the right what is in the target, and then in between it's showing us the difference and what is identical. So far all the tables only have identical figures, and there's no difference between there's nothing that is only in source and nothing that's only in target. Now let's throw a spanner in that. Let us insert a new category, right? And you can click on the different tables, of course, and view, right? So I'm going to create a new category. So I'm just going to create a new script, and I'm going to say insert into. So you can see here that my scripting practices are bad, but let's see what's in store for us. So if I just do tab, oh, look at that. It just generated all of that for me. So category name would be new category. And the description here, I'm just going to say test, and I will leave the image null. All right. And then when I execute this, then the query is executed successfully. Now, this is one thing that I can say SSMS gives me a bit better feedback, because SSMS would show you upfront, hey, one row affected, two rows affected, etc. Actually, I didn't even notice this. So I actually ran this more than once, and then when I did a retrieve data, I ended up with several new test categories, right? So that's probably one little bit of feedback right there. Give me a more obvious feedback from a query like this. Anyhow, let us go through that compare again. So I'm just going to kind of do it quickly. You saw the steps, but well, let's just do it together again. So right click the database, go to tools, go to new data comparison, and I'm comparing between SQL Express and my local host. Both have the Northwind database, and then I click compare. And then we see something very interesting. One, it's now categorizing the categories table under the different section, right? Everything else is identical, but now categories is different, and it's showing me what is new to the left and where it's not in the right, okay? And now I can click this to synchronize data to the target database. And look at this. One click, open for internal error. Yeah, okay. Let's look at the options. And you can choose to do a backup in the process. So it will take a backup of your database when it's attempting to do all of this. And you can run scripts in between, and then it will let you know of any foreign key considerations. So I'll just go ahead and click synchronize. And after doing that, it showed me a script where it did the backup and everything. And then it told me that, okay, it did the insert statements for me. And all of this went on fine. I'll just click execute, and everything was executed successfully. Now, if I go back to that comparison tab and refresh, it's going to redo that data comparison. So I actually didn't have to go through all the steps again like I did earlier, but the ultimate goal has been accomplished. Now our data is synchronized, and that's how easy it is to move data from one database to the other. So once again, think about synchronizing data between your environments, or even two different databases that need to kind of be in sync. That's how easy it is. Now the schema compare, and with this I'm going to close and leave you guys to go ahead and download this, and you can check in my description. I do have a promo code where you get 10% off, so you can check that out as well. Now tools, schema comparison. And then let us once again compare the two Northwind databases on my two instances. And now this is very important because the direction matters, right? I am saying this is the source, this is the target. Now what you're going to notice is that I added the table, the new table, to my SQL Express. And that is the target, which means that we want to move the changes or the differences from the source to the target. Since new table is on the target, what it's going to suggest after doing this compare is that I drop the table on the target so that we can be in sync. That's not necessarily what we want, right? Or, I'm just pointing that out so that you can be very deliberate in doing this, right? So if it is that you wanted to synchronize changes from, say, staging, you made some database changes to the schema, I know you need to move those changes over to the production database, then of course your source needs to be the one with the actual change, and then the target is the one that doesn't have the change. If it is that the change is that you remove something, or something is now missing between the two, just bear that in mind, right? So so that is the comparison where I would have to remove new table from the Express. But let me do that comparison again, and I'm going to flip the script. So this time I'm going to say that my source is the dev database, for instance, SQL Express, and then my local host database is the production. So I have a new table here, and I want it in production now. So when I do the compare, it is going to run through the same things. And then this time it's going to show me that the update will actually create this new table. So the source object is new table, as with any other view, stored procedure, anything that you would have had on the development environment that you need to now move to the new environment, they will be listed here. And then I can simply click synchronize. And actually, I think I just did something the hard way. Okay, so I can actually just right click and say edit. So you see, it's just a gift that keeps on giving. I just thought about it and it's there. So that's my bad for missing it the first time. But I could actually just go to edit comparison, flip it around, and then just redo the compare without having to go through the wizard from scratch. Anyhow, we're already here, so forgive me. I'm going to go ahead and synchronize objects, and it gives us the same options where it's going to back up the database, generate additional scripts if we need it. And I'm going to go ahead and click synchronize. It will generate that script. We can eyeball it to make sure that there is nothing in there that's dangerous. And then we can click execute. And once that execution has been completed, then if I refresh both of my database tables, I should now see new table, right? So this one for localhost didn't have new table. And the one for SQL Express, as soon as my eyes adjust and I can see it, there we go, already had new table. So that's how easy it is to migrate schema changes from one database to another. So ultimately, I like this tool. It's very efficient, and it does help with productivity. And it's easy to start using. Everything is labeled well. The layout is clean. And once again, it's easy to kind of transition from the SSMS way of doing things to the Devart way of doing things, but we're still doing the same things. And there are additional features that you can take advantage of. If you use source control management system, you can easily integrate this to source control management. If you do unit testing, it can easily manage all of the unit tests and run them for you. You can even bake the schema compare and deployments into your DevOps pipeline if that's what you're doing. So it is a very powerful tool, and I do recommend you get it. Once again, you can check in my description for a promo code so you can get a discount. With that said and done, I thank you for sticking around with me and experimenting with me. I hope that you found this video useful. Click subscribe, share this video, like this video, support the channel, and of course leave your reviews in the comments and let me know how you feel, and I'll see you in the next lesson.